What is up, everyone? Welcome to DIY or Die. Feels good to be back, and it's going to be sort of an interesting coming back video, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about as soon as possible. So I've had a couple inquiries about sea liquid, and I just want to tell a little story and then talk about some of the dangers of sea liquid. I do not condone, encourage at all the use of any sort of mood altering substances whatsoever on this channel at all. Anything you see here is strictly for entertainment purposes only. It's not meant to be seen as educational or informational. I need to say that, especially on this video. This is a serious issue. So what sea liquid is essentially a cannabinoid analog. It's a changed sort of synthetic compound in order to fire the cannabinoid receptors in the brain at alarmingly high rates, to sort of trigger a high similar to THC, except THC and any strong potent marijuana that's either smoked, that's either eaten, ingested in some way, only barely, partially, just a tiny bit triggers cannabinoid receptors in the brain, where these research chemicals such as K2 or sea liquid completely just ignite those receptors, which can be extremely dangerous, fatal. You can induce seizures. It's very easy to overdose on this. So let me explain a little story, or tell you a little story about me back in the day. So back in high school, I was a frequent, more in my later years of high school, early college area. I don't really exactly remember the exact, my age when I tried this, but I smoked K2, which is basically the synthetic marijuana. And I don't want to call it synthetic marijuana because that's not what it is. It's not marijuana at all. I'm only just using that name to further identify it to you if you don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what else to call it, to be honest, other than a cannabinoid analog, a research chemical. It's not technically synthetic marijuana, but that's kind of what people call it. Anyways, I remember finding some of this K2, I think it was called Buddha Buds, and it came in this little vial, and I remember it was purchased legally. It was purchased at a gas station, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, this is just synthetic marijuana. I've heard about it. It was sort of just coming up. It just started to become new, and people were using it, and people seemed to be fine. And I've used it before. I've smoked very tiny amounts of it before this one experience, where nothing seemed to really happen, and in fact it produced somewhat of a pleasurable high the few times that I've consumed it prior to this event. And then I thought nothing of it. So I said, you know what, I got this Buddha Buds. I'm out of regular marijuana. Let me just smoke this Buddha Buds. Whatever. It seems to be fine. I just didn't think anything of it because it had the name synthetic marijuana. I attributed it to marijuana. You could purchase it at a gas station at the time. I don't think you can anymore. So I figured it was probably, if it wasn't dangerous, or if it wasn't gonna at least get me extremely ripped like regular marijuana would be, then at least something would happen, right? I was a drug addict at the time. I was in a very, I was just a crazy kid back in the day. So I figured, I'll just smoke some of this stuff and we'll be good, and we'll finish our night. We'll go to bed. It'll just be an easy night. I'm by myself. There's no one with me. And it was just gonna be an easy sort of Thursday night. Well, I proceeded to load this synthetic potpourri in my smoking apparatus, which was a bong at the time, and I go and I light the bong up, and I'm ripping it. First rip, inhale, exhale. I remember this like it was yesterday. It's kind of making my heart race a little bit, but I remember taking the first big rip, inhaling, exhaling, and being like, okay, let's take one more rip. And as soon as I'm really ripping on this second rip, I just hear, I feel my heart just start to race. And then all of a sudden, my brain just triggers into this extreme state of panic and paranoia, where I'm thinking, just in a blink of an eye, I'm in this panic mode, And in my brain, I'm thinking, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm smoking right now. This is a terrible idea. My heart is about to explode. And I have these extreme racing thoughts of paranoia, panic. I feel my heart just like thumping out of its chest. And then I proceed to just put the bong down. And I remember just thinking, like, I'm going to die. This is me. I'm going to overdose on this stupid fucking product that I have no idea about. I know nothing about it. I don't know what's in it. I've never heard anything about it. And I just remember just freaking the fuck out. Like, it was really, really bad. And as I proceeded to kind of lay down while all these thoughts are racing in my head, my heart's pumping in my chest, right? Just mile a minute. I'm getting hot. Like I'm ODing. This is essentially what's happening. I'm essentially ODing. I start to kind of like seize. Like I'm start to have like this really weird, just like violent but like minuscule seizure movements on the ground. And this is where, you know, that paranoia from it, you know, because it's effectively just firing off all of my cannabinoid receptors, and I guess some of those receptors lead into that paranoia. That's why when some people smoke, they get paranoid. Well, this is just firing off at 1,000%. So I'm thinking I'm dying, right? I'm thinking I'm dying. I'm overdosing. I'm thinking about, oh my God, my life is ruined. My parents are gonna find me dead on the ground here. This is gonna be so embarrassing. Like all these thoughts are just racing through my head. My heart's just thumping out of its chest, and this lasts for a terrifying like 25 minutes, and I just couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't call the ambulance. I didn't have my phone on me. Mind you, I'm in my room downstairs at the time. My parents are upstairs in their room. They have no idea what's going on underneath, right? They really just have no idea. And then finally, as I start to kind of compose myself and I'm able to sort of like, you know, grasp reality a little bit, I just bolt up and I run out of the house. I just jolt out of the house and I just start just basically running around the block. I'm trying to essentially tire myself out to try to bring my heart rate down. I'm breathing in and out very heavily. I'm just really just trying to just fucking stay alive, like survive at this point. And then this is just, you know, me just like running around the block still with just these racing panic thoughts. And I remember like thinking to myself while having these racing thoughts, like, this is crazy the amount my brain is just sort of firing at all these cylinders. And this, like I said, that severe sort of like overdose period lasted like a terrifying like 20 to 30 minutes. Then I get up and I start walking around the block, and that lasts for around like 2 hours. I did that for around 2 hours. And then I come inside and I'm still just kind of like tweaked out. And I just don't feel right, and my heart's still racing. I didn't know what my beats per minute was, but it was extremely high. I'm sure I could feel it in my neck, right? But I'm able to sort of just like somewhat relax, somewhat calm down. I'm like, okay, the worst part of it's over. I'm probably not gonna die, but I still had these racing paranoia thoughts. It was just a terrible experience, and I was up all night researching what the fuck I just consumed, right? I wanted to know if this was gonna kill me or if this was gonna damage me in any way, because it just felt like it would never end. It just felt like I was stuck in this crazed state and that I was losing my mind and that it would never end. And I started reading all of these stories about these people who were consuming K2 and consuming synthetic marijuana, and how some of them they're just fucked, right? And this led more into that paranoia, more into that crazed state. I saw no good experiences come of it, other than people who said, like, I took a little bit of a hit here and it seemed to be fine. I smoked a good amount of it. I hit it in a bong like it was regular weed. It was a terrible, terrible idea. Probably one of the worst mistakes I've ever made in my life. It was terrifying. And anytime I heard anything about it, I always tell that story because I just don't want anyone to experience that, because it was so frightening. It was so terrifying. And like I said, I remember like it was yesterday. Like there was no high. You know what I mean? Like there was no cloudy thoughts. It was just like my brain is just firing at all cylinders here. My heart is about to explode. My muscles are twitching and seizing, and I'm having like really hard, I can't control my motor functions. And it was because of these cannabinoid, these analog research chemicals, whatever. I don't know the exact name of them, but that's what it was. And essentially, we're going to get back to the video here, but essentially that's what the C liquid is. So what happens now is that because the synthetic marijuana craze, the FDA, there was a lot of overdoses happening and people were dying, essentially, right? People were dying. People were getting violently addicted to K2 and synthetic marijuana. I have to put quotes up every time I say that. There was a documentary about it over in the UK where people are just violently addicted to this substance. If they don't have it, the withdrawals from it are just debilitating, like completely debilitating, worse than heroin, it looks like. I think it was a documentary done by Vice, and it's just a terrible compound. So what happens is that a lot of states in the US start banning them, but they only ban the one compound. So then the people who create these compounds, they're usually labs out in China, they're labs out in India, wherever, Mexico. They just tweak the compound just ever so slightly. That way it can get by, it can get by illegally, but it still attacks that cannabinoid receptor in the brain. And they do this over and over and over and over again. And the more they do it, the less there's research on these compounds, right? The more that they do it, the less is known about how this compound actually affects your brain in the short term and in the long term. There's just no testing to it. And this has been going on for years now, right? I consumed this, like I said, back when I was in high school. So maybe it was my freshman or junior year in college. It might have been a little bit after that, but that was years ago. So I can only imagine the state it's in now, where they're basically just pumping out whatever they can. There's absolutely no testing on it. But they just know that it just hits those cannabinoid receptors in the brain. And because that they're banning these potpourri sort of systems where they're just spraying they're just basically just spraying herbs and potpourri with this research chemical. Well, now they start to put it into vape juice, into e-liquids, and they're putting this compound into these bottles that you would put into your vape to inhale and consume. And right here you can see this is sort of what it goes by, C-liquids. That's what they're called. They're called C-liquids. And this is kind of terrifying because you never know. Don't ever listen. Don't ever vape someone's vape if you don't know them. You know what I mean? Don't ever vape someone's vape if you don't know them. Like, imagine going to a show and you don't know what's in someone's vape and they're vaping this C-liquid and you end up fucking having a seizure on the fucking ground. But this is essentially what it's called, C-liquid. I don't really know much about C-liquid other than their research chemicals. They're the same research chemicals used to make K2. You can see they attack the cannabinoid receptors. C-liquid under the brand name Mad Hatter in a chemical suspension opening up brand new and fun ways for researching such cannabinoids. This product is approximately 60% more potent than standard strength C-liquids. And then if you look at the reviews, you can tell the way that people talk about using this stuff is that they're using it for quote unquote research. So don't go by any of that. They're not researchers. They're not scientists. Maybe some of them are, but for the most part, they're not. They're just people looking to get high. And unfortunately, they're using a substance that they're going to get massively and violently addicted to. And this is not to say that I want all cannabinoid receptor research chemicals banned or anything like that, because I do think that there is value in research chemicals. And I do think there is value in science. And if you just put a blanket ban on all cannabinoid receptor chemicals, then who knows what kind of breakthroughs we might have in the future where we can't use them now because it was used recklessly before then. So I also want to put that out there, like just personally, just stay away from this stuff. Don't mix this stuff up. This is what I think. Wait until, years and years down the line when someone with a doctorate degree knows what they're doing and they can figure out the best ways to use this stuff. But until then, if you're just buying them off of the internet in a thing called C-liquid Mad Hatter, you're probably not getting a legit product. You don't know the potency in this product. You don't know exactly what's in it. You could be smoking whatever. You know what I mean? And you couldn't have that same exact terrifying experience that I had. Anyone who asked me about this previously, this is my video on it. I'm not telling you to mix with it at all. I'm not condoning it. I'm just giving you my experience with K2, which is somewhat of a different product of this. And that's all I'm gonna say on it. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna address anyone who asked about this stuff. Like I said, it's like right here in the back of my mind. I remember that day very vividly. terrifying experience. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and also subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Don't forget to head over to my website, DIY.vaping.com, if you want to see more on DIY e-liquid recipe tips, tricks, tutorials, and more. I'll catch y'all later. Keep mixing. Much love. Peace.